Okay, so I'm going to call this part 2 of a non-spherical eye, and one of the things you also want to put on there, obviously, are eyelids. So an old way of doing this that, honestly, I haven't used in years, but I thought I would just show it anyway, because it's kind of funny. And then I'll show you how I'm working on a new way to put this in there. But anyway, if I go in here and create a NURBS sphere, and I'm going to snap it to my eyeball here, and I'm going to rotate it. Let's see, 90 degrees this way and 90 degrees this way, negative 90 looks like, and then scale that up. So it covers my eye there, and just to double check, I'm going to grab the two of them, and yeah, just as I thought, it's not centered, so I'm going to make it so it is centered on the object, and then scale it down just a touch. There we go. And one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm leaving the history on. Again, this is an old way of doing this, and it was sort of a demo that Autodesk used to use. But you see you have your start and end sweep. So an old way of doing very simple eyelids was to use that start and end sweep to close your eyes and open your eyes. You put a centrifugal key or something like that on there, and you can have a little blinky eye. And then what they would do, and this is part of the thing that I'm going to do, but in a different way, is you would then, well, let me open that eye up. Actually, let me see if I can freeze it. Yeah, good. I'm going to open that eye up just a little bit. And obviously, just like the eyeball, it doesn't fit in my eye socket, but I can add this to the same deformers, this lattice here. So I'm going to open up the attribute editor. I'm going to go to that lattice, and under deformer attribute, you have manage deform geometry and a little add selected. So the way you want to use that is you first want to pin this attribute editor so it doesn't go anywhere, and then select the eyeball there, and then I can go in here and say add selected. Now it's been selected, I'll unpin it, and right now, since I don't have the deformer envelope turned on, the FFD is envelope is at 0. You'll see what happens when I then go ahead and close that up. So you see it locks in there. Obviously, it's not, perfect because this got different topology on it. Actually, I could go in and actually give it more sections and more spans, but I think it's still not going to be perfect. But it was just kind of funny because back in the day, they'd be like, okay, now you've got your eyeball. So you open it up there. Let's open it up completely, and we'll key that, and then we'll take this and go 0 and 0. Whoops, what did I do? There we go. 360, is that it? Let's see here. Yeah, pink, 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 pink. Right? And then if you move the eyeball around inside, just like before. Now the one thing, by the way, before you guys may have noticed that when I put a joint on there, I squished that eyeball down and everything looked fine unless I twisted, right? And basically what that is, and I'll just kind of do this with like a cluster or something like that. I'll go in here and select these verts and put a cluster on them, deform, create cluster. And like before, I'm going to go in and make sure that that cluster in my deformer stack under all inputs is happening before the lattice. So I'm just going to drag it down. And now what I can do is just take that cluster and bring it down and give us what appears to be a spherical eye. But I don't know if you noticed before, but if I rotate this, only in Y and X, everything looks fine. But the minute I rotate it in Z, it looks funky. So just be aware of that. Obviously, you don't really roll your eyes that way. At least I don't think anybody does. So just be aware that if you do twist it, the deformation's saying, squish this eye down, and then the rotation's turning it over, and then the lattice is pulling it up. So it's no longer working as intended. So the idea would be just, lock your Z so you can't actually do that. Okay. So I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to delete all that. Okay. But I just wanted to show that old eyeball technique. And I'm going to pause the video, but first I'll show you what I'm working on, which is a new eyelid. Then I'm going to do the same thing. And actually right now it's already in the lattice. I've just built it kind of like this to go around that eye. And one of the things you want to be careful of if you're doing something like this, like I was going in and I was like, you know what, I want to go here and tweak it a little bit and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to delete the history on this eyelid so that I can work more on the model of it. So if you do that, so I go to here to edit, delete by type, history. When I do that, one of the things you notice is I lose all my lattices. And that's not great. So basically what that's saying is, you know, delete the lattice that's on here. And for some reason, because that's a blend shape to this lattice, it deletes that lattice as well. So what you want to do is first remove it from the deformer before you do that. So I haven't done this in a while, so let's see what happens if I pin that. Can I do a remove selected geometry? Cool. So now if I look at this, I have no history. I go to edit, delete by type, history, nothing happens. The only other thing I want to check for is to see if I have any of those extra shape nodes underneath here. And it's a little bit tricky because you don't see them by default. We call them ridge nodes. When you create a deformer like on a sphere or any sort of mesh or something like that, you're going to get this ridge node created, and actually it got rid of it, which is nice when I took it out of the deformer. But if we take a look at, say, the other eyeball, which does have a deformer on it still, let's see, it's got a lot of extra stuff I don't care about right now. All these group parts, I don't care about that. GeoShape and GeoShape. So it didn't rename it. Usually it does. But I talked about this before. If I go down and over, I'm going to get that. So that's my ridge shape. Actually, I might even go in there and rename it at some point. But yeah, just be aware that sometimes when you delete history on an object, like let's see if I create a sphere, throw a deformer on there, a cluster, or whatever, and then delete history. I just have it in my marking menu there. So if I go down and over, oh good, it did get rid of it. It doesn't always get rid of it. You just want to be aware of that. Because you get those extra shape nodes in there, it can do some weird stuff. Alright, so I'm going to work on this a little bit, but now that I've done that, I can actually go in here and model. And one of the reasons I'm modeling it this way, because I'm going to put a joint system in there to open it and close it, just like we did before with the, like it did with the history of that other sphere. But one of the things I want to do is actually give this guy a little bit of an eyelid. And I thought it might be interesting for people to see, because I went in here and it's an old trick. If you go, you can actually go to Move Tool and go to Normal. And you see that I have a different sort of manipulator here, and I have Normal, V, and U. So this is along the U axis. It's based on your UVs, so it really depends on what your UVs look like. As you can see, I must have them, you know, they don't all align the way you'd think they would. Same thing with the V if I move them that way. So it's probably a seam right around here somewhere. But what I can do is push these guys out on their normal axis just a little bit and get a nice sort of like little eyelid going on down there. So I'm going to grab this one, drop these edges out, convert it again to CVs, and now I can get something a little bit more interesting for my eyelid than I had before. I can even go in here and grab these guys up here. And push those in just a little tiny bit, so I get kind of a more interesting eyelid on my character here. So then what I would do, actually I'll just keep going. I am going to go and just pull this back a little bit because I'm not happy with the way that looks. But I can, once I'm happy with this, you know, delete history, double check those UVs. You always want to do your UVs before you do any modeling work. Because what can happen is, like with that extra deformer node, it'll leave the UVs back on that shape node, and you don't want that. So let's grab some UVs here. Oops, I'm sorry, UVs. Let's grab those, scale those up, and then expand my selection, scale those up. I do have some wonkiness in there, I kind of don't care. And then I'm just going to go ahead and normalize it, which normalizing it just puts it into the 0 to 1 space. See what it looks like. I want to make sure I don't have a whole lot of stretching on there. Delete that history. So I'm going to go back into that UV editor, and actually if you turn on, I always forget which button it is, because let's see, I'm going to hover for a second here. Shaded, reverse UVs, UV distortion. So it's all white, which actually is or pretty close to white, which means I don't have a lot of stretching in here, which is good. I'm amazed because I just eyeballed that, and it still kind of worked. Funny, that was an unexpected pun. All right, so delete my history, and when I want to duplicate this to the other side, I still use this technique even though there's other tools and things like that out there. I'll just group it, duplicate that group, and scale in -1 that group to put to the other side. And just go make sure you go in there and rename it. You want the names to be unique. The one thing though is right now I have, oh, I don't have it on. Usually I have under lighting, I have two-sided lighting. And the reason for that is so I can see inside and outside at the same time. But that does get confusing because you can't, because then you can't see it quickly if you have a front and back side. But I do want to go check those normals. So I can go to display, polygon display, face normals, and I can see that they're all aiming outwards. And sometimes you got to get in close because these normals can be really small. But that is an attribute on the shape node. So if you go to mesh component display, you can actually go to your normal size. And if you need to make them bigger, you can go in there. And if you hold control, you can scale that. Well, isn't that interesting? What's going on? Oh, I don't have them turned on. You can also go in here and turn them on display normal. There they are. Look at that. It's not so. Oh, because I have the pin on. That's why. I was confused. There we go. So now we can see that our normals are actually going to the outside like we want them to. Let me set those to like 2. The other thing about the attribute editor is it only acts on one object at a time, which can be a little bit confusing. So you notice that if I go in here, even though I have both selected, I click on this one and say type 5, it's only going to do that one that's listed here. That gets a little confusing, just kind of the way the attribute editor works. The other thing is I notice I do seem to have some seams that I might want to fix up, so I'm going to go in here under display, mesh display, and say soften edges, and then again delete the history. And now you'll notice when I put these into unshaded mode or unsmooth display by hitting 1, they don't look all chunky like they did before. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit more work on this, and then I'll come back and show you how to rig the rest of this eye. Okay, so I'm coming back to this. I've done a little work on the eyelids to make them a little bit more interesting and look better, and fit them into the sockets just a little bit better. I'm not sure if I'm going to do fur or just a space, or I haven't decided what I'm doing, to be honest. I just sort of was making a tutorial out of this, and this is what's come out of it. In any case, so I have my eyelids in here under that lattice, along with the eyeballs under that lattice. I thought of a couple things that I wanted to show. One is just a quick, quick rig of the eyelids themselves. So I'm also going to do what I did before, which was to drop that lattice to 0. And what my hope is, let's grab this, this, and this. Oops. Come on, eyeball. Where are you? Let's go to Geo for a second. Bling, bling. And show my joints. Select that center joint. Okay, I'm going to isolate that. So my hope is that I can use this same pivot point for my eyelids. So just going to do something really simple. Actually, I'm going to hide the geo for a second so I can snap to here and there and bring the geo back. And I'm going to make this my upper eyelid. And what I tend to do is make it straight and flat, just so that's the bottom of the thing, of the lid there. I'm just going to duplicate that so I have 2 of them. You can select that and say, low up lid. Or sorry, that was left up lid. I'll hit that and suffix it with JNT. And now I'll do the same for the, select HI. And we'll call this low lid, JNT. Cool. And it looks like they're in the right position. And real quick, let's just check their localization axes. And as you can see, the child is not right. So there's that joint issue does none. Puts it in the right place. Now there's two trains of thought. There's 2 trains of thought you can do on this. One is you have them match, so they have the same local rotation axis. And another is that you flip the lower eyelid so that when you move them separately. This is a little bit weird because then you're working with, you know, negative numbers and you're working with positive numbers. So I'm gonna leave, oops. I'm gonna leave them 0 the way they were. And then the last thing I want to do is just give a joint that's going to then be the root OOT. Well, I should have done, let's do lid root joint. Cool. So it's these 3 joints, whoops, these 3 joints that I'm going to bind to this lid rig here. So let's just do a quick bind on that, build them up, bind skin. Should be defaults. I'm going to put my little tool here because what I want to show you is some weighting tricks. So right now if I move the base here, which in the end isn't going to get moved, the idea is I'm going to use that to balance off the others. So I'm going to take the left up lid and raise that, and you see I get some weirdness there. But what I'm going to do is key these guys. So what I will do, select these 2, key them, and then I'm going to open the up lid and open the down lid. And whoops, Okay, I've keyed them. That's good. Actually, let's just set this to like 40 so we don't have a huge thing there. Okay. And what I want to do is I'm going to weight the upper half to the upper lid and the lower half to the lower lid. So I'll just open that up. I'm going to grab these 3, throw in my little joint weight tool here. You don't need this. This is just my little thing that I use. So if I look at the root, you can see it doesn't have everything selected yet. So what I'm going to do is just kind of, whoops, not H. Grab a bunch of those verts and then flood that. So that's the base of our, maybe I'll go up a little more, add flood. Okay, and then smooth it. Okay, so that's just going to be, so make sure that the back side of our, or where we don't want the lid to move, doesn't move, right? So now what I do is grab this upper section and do the upper lid. So I'm going to grab the up lid, and you can see it kind of has like everything, right? So I'm just going to go in here, and what I want to do is actually select this joint and I'm going to lock it. To do that, you actually normally do it in the paint weights tool. Actually, I'll just leave that open so you can see both. All right, so now that that's locked, when I go in here and add to my up lid, if say I paint up here, watch what happens when I click back and forth. So basically what I'm doing is I'm selecting the different joints. But it's not taking that weight because it's locked to the root joint there, right? So let's open it up, and actually I'm just going to go in here and start selecting all this stuff. And we'll mirror it. Oh, mirroring is not working at the moment. Okay. There we go. And now I just want to be careful that I don't accidentally paint on the lower lid. It's not a big deal because we'll fix it later, but and I kind of don't care that much about the if I do get some of that lower, because I'm going to fix it when I go to the lower lid joint. Okay. Cool. I'm going to grab the lower lid. So you can see the lower lid has a bunch of things it has that it shouldn't have. So I'm going to go into my scale and set that value to 0. And what that'll do is just drop it out completely. And because I have the root joint locked, it's going to automatically go to the upper joint. At least it should. There we go. Oh, yeah, one of the things you might notice when I have my quick button here, when you do that replace at 0 or scale to 0, I use this, which is the full block out, so that way it won't, you'll just make sure you get it all 100%. All right, so now let's grab the lower lid. I'm not going to worry about this just yet. low lid. I'm going to add this in. And one thing you can do, actually, I have a little thing here for scale mult, but what you can do is when you use the multiply, where is it? I'm in scale, which is multiply, and I'm going to make the value 1.1. And what that means is it's actually going to, anywhere I don't have weight, it's not going to do anything. Anywhere I do, it's going to add it. So it's kind of a quick way. So what you can do is actually hit flood, or flood, a bunch of times, and just flood the area that you want, right? And actually, I'll unlock the root joint now and just smooth it. Put it on smooth and flood it. There we go. I'm on my low lid. Oh, sorry, that's the up lid. And I want to replace everything that I don't want to have any movement at all on. Again, I'm just putting it on replace, value of 0, and this third profile, which is the full. On my low lid, I can see I've got a bunch in here that I don't want to have. There we go. And make sure you get the inside as well, so you might want to jump to another window and just make sure you're getting it all in there. Ooh, look at that. Ugh. There we go, that's better. So I'll try that again. I'm going to go to my upload. I want these weights to go actually to my up lid, but not my low lid. So I'm going to lock low lid, go to upper lid. I'm using that replace 0. And what that'll do is automatically drop it and go to whatever weight's available, in this case, which is the upper lid. There we go. Alright, now just do a little tweaking on this. Let's go back to that add. Whoops. Soften it a little bit. As long as you start on that section, you'll keep that section. So like if I click like that, I'm going to go, but if I start from below it, it shouldn't accidentally grab up. Still just want to watch to make sure those weights don't actually go flying off. And I can be pretty aggressive with those corners. And you'll notice a lot of times I want to go with unsmooth. I just basically want to see exactly what I'm working with. If I'm in smooth, it can sometimes hide what what CV you're actually on or vertex you're actually on. So if I'm in smooth mode and I go to paint this, I'm like, wait, why isn't it working? It's because you got to get all the way out to where that vert actually is hanging out. Alright, I'm not going to go too crazy here. But let's see what happens if we push this all the way up. Cool. Alright, so what I'm actually going to do is just grab these edge loops and use hammer. So under skin, you have this thing called hammer weights. And that just kind of, oh, that's new. Okay. And it just tries to like soften those things. And you can kind of go in here and I'm just hitting the G key and the arrow keys. It's like a quick cheat. All right. Creepy eye. Okay, the last thing I want to look at is the type of skin weight I have. So right now I'm on classic linear, which is the default, I believe. But if I go in here and just change this to, say, dual quaternion, you see how much of a difference it is. So that dual quaternion is going to try and keep those rotations just a little bit better. See how that keeps the rotations? If I go back to my classic linear, watch what happens. See how it kind of scrunches through and gets pinches up in this area here. I can actually just switch right back and forth. You can see the difference there. So it's a little more natural looking, right? All right. So like before, I'm going to go ahead and select all these and make my, oh my gosh, make my joint labels. So if I look at my label, you see it's, well, it's actually showing it as left. Actually, it is left. Oops. They had root. Great. Cool. So I do want to mirror these to the other side. So the default mirror tool in Maya, this drives people crazy. As you can see, I don't really use it, but I should. Mirror joints. There we go. If I select all of these guys and hit mirror, it's going to get an error. You're like, what? I don't understand. That makes no sense. The reason for that is because it doesn't work on multiple joints. So you actually have to select, you can do it individually, right? Why is that, you ask? I don't know, to be honest. No idea. But I am going to roll it over because right now it's got the X in the wrong direction. So we want that Y up, the Z to the side, and the X forward. So again, I can use the technique with the question mark, or actually let me double check because it looks like the root joint. Oops. Okay, root joint is messed up too. So root joint, since it's got no other, it's got no children, I can actually just snap it. Oops, come on, J. Snap it forward, snap it upright, and if I freeze transformations, it's sort of the same thing as making those local rotations in the local axes into them. But if I look at the other joints that were mirrored using behavior, again, I could have used orient, but I don't. It's easier. I'm almost always going to change these, so I want to see them. There we go. So my little tool here just rotates in 90, just to make my life a little bit easier. And then this is that ZSO, which is, again, joint SG ZSO, which is going to make the local rotation axis and the local axis match each other. So you should, when you're in, what you want to see is when you're in object mode, for both the move and the rotate tool, that the move lines up with the joint. Cool, cool. Now I am going to go ahead and select all these guys and redo, whoops, nope. Redo my, oh, look at that, that's wrong. There we go. labels, because I like to use labels for everything here. I just find with joints it works a lot better if you're using labels. So what I'm going to do now is bring in the other eyelid, which is this one. And again, turn the lattice off so I can see what it looks like. Sorry, there it is. I'm going to select those same joints. And, whoops, no, boy, hotkey crazy, right? I'm going to do a quick blot. Hey, well, whatever. Who cares if my script is broken? Skin, blind skin. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. So now I can select, I guess it worked, it just gave me an error. I'll select the left joint, left eyelid and the right eyelid, and I should be able to do a mirror, but sometimes that doesn't do what you want. So let's try that again. Skin, mirror skin weights, open that up. Y to Z, positive and negative, closest point on the surface. We want to use label, and we want to use 1 to 1, and we'll say apply, and it got pretty close, it looks like. That's the low lid, yeah. So let's just do a quick animation on these to see what that looks like. Where did I put this to? 36, okay. That's the upper lid. Let's give it about the same rotations. Somewhere around there. And the low lid, same thing. So sometimes when vertices are just too close to each other like they were for the bottoms of the, if I turn the cluster off, you can see that these vertices are like right on top of each other. Let's see if we can find them, yeah. So when that happens, it just, the tolerances just can't do it. So often what I'll do is go in here and select those edge loops and hammer them. And a lot of times that'll fix whatever issues I was having. Granted, this now doesn't match exactly, so I'll have to show you how to do that. But let's just try something really quick. That's at 24.73. Let's just make it 25. 25. Negative 35. Negative 35. These should be at 0. Keep them all. And I'll redo this. This time when I do that mirror skin weights, I am going to use, I guess close to point. Let's see what that does. Alright, so that might have matched it. Cool. So now we have matching eyelid movements, except for I'm making that one go larger. And then the last thing I want to do is make sure that when I have the deformation order correct. So I'm going to go back in here, turn these guys on, and it's obviously not doing what it should do. So go in here to inputs, all inputs, drop the skin cluster below the lattice. So the skin cluster happens first, then the lattice, and we should get something that looks like what we want it to look like. And now when he looks around, oh, did I unbind that? Oh, maybe I didn't. Maybe I broke that. Oh, that's a bummer. Hold on, let me see if I can fix it real quick. Oh, I lost my weights then. Oh, whatever. We'll just do it quick for demo purposes. Of course, it's going to not work because of the deformation order. I will bring it back. There we go. And now we can move around inside that. And we can blink. All right, I'm going to pause right there and come back and talk about eye movements based on the movements of the pupils.